On today's DNVR Broncos podcast, we are breaking down, should the Broncos make a trade for Ashton Jeanty? How much should the Broncos be willing to give up? And how far should they be willing to go up to get him? That conversation starts now. We're starting the week off on the DNVR Broncos podcast with what actually might be a spicy conversation about Ashton Jeanty.
You gotta stop referencing that.
I think it's an all-time one.
It just puts everyone in a slightly worse mood to think about that.
Well, maybe I'm putting you two in a worse mood to start this show because there might be some back and forth between you two here. Good thing I'm in the middle of it on today's DNVR Broncos podcast. We are the DNVR Broncos podcast, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores inside the Toyota Lounge here in the DNVR Bar. Ryan Koenigsberg to my left, Henry Chisholm to my right. We got Dion and you here behind the camera, and Zac Stevens rocking and rolling with you today. How we doing on this Monday?
Amazing. Weather's great. That's all I could ask for. Is it possible that we are into real spring, past fake spring?
We're into summer. Opening day is the official first day of summer. So summer started on Friday.
This Saturday, I think the projected high is 84.
Yep.
The all-time record high is 85.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, I think we're into real spring.
All right.
Although we have had drafts where there's been snow.
Yeah.
And we're still 17 days away from that. That was the first time DeMarcus Walker ever saw snow. Was the day after he was drafted by the Broncos.
I mean, I graduated from CU in May, which I think is the normal time to graduate. And there was snow on my graduation day.
Was that a shot? Well, who was that a shot at? The normal graduation day?
No, I was just. Oh. I said it like it was like specific to me, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so. Yeah, we'll probably have another snow day or something.
That would suck.
No, snow's okay. Cold's not. Snow's okay.
Well, how does that happen?
Well, if you have snow, then the cold's okay. But if you don't have snow, then cold's not okay.
No.
Yeah.
Snow should be done in March.
I think it should be done like January.
So do
I think February on.
Snow doesn't even start until after that.
Yeah, you have to negotiate with the snow.
Okay, speaking of negotiating.
Yep.
Should the Broncos negotiate to trade up for Ashton Jeanty here? And before we dive into that, we're going to debut our 15 for 15, where we're going to break down kind of the top 15 prospects for the Broncos. We're going to break down one a day leading up to the draft with 17 days away. Got some weekends in there. We're starting this today. And we're going to start with Ashton Jeanty. So before we get into the conversation of should the Broncos trade up for him and how much they should be willing to give up, and will the Broncos consider this, let's just talk about Ashton Jeanty as a prospect. Because from chatterings before the show, I think the person to my left of me and the person to my right of me might have slightly different opinions on Jeanty.
This is silly, but yeah, sure. I guess we do.
What's silly about it?
It's silly because I'm going to be made out to be the guy who's like low on Ashton Jeanty when I'm incredibly high on Ashton Jeanty. But the question was, is he overrated? And you've got Henry over here comparing him to LaDainian Tomlinson. So obviously he's overrated.
Wow.
I think when you're just looking at most likely outcome, that's the one that I land on. Like
the most likely outcome is that he becomes a top 5 running back of all time.
I mean, I think that when you just like look through again, there's like other he could be Maurice Jones-Drew. He could, but I think when you just look at what he did and when you watch the way he ran, the way LT ran in the Mountain West, like I think that you have to see the similarities. Like it's just freaky kind of stuff. The way he breaks tackles and the speed and the burst and the wiggle that he has to change angles. Like that's who it reminds me of.
Yeah, there's a difference between someone reminding you of someone and saying that the outcome of their career, the most likely destination is LaDainian Tomlinson.
And you can think that if you want, but again, like it's I think that when you go back through the great running back prospects, like Bijan was up there. Personally, I think that Jeanty's a better prospect than Bijan. I think that you just see there's just a better feel and balance to him than there was with Bijan. I think I go back to Saquon and say, like, that's the last running back prospect who had better. And I think if I had a podcast talking about the draft at the time, I probably would have said Saquon's going to be, if I had to guess, I'd bank on him being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's at all in the class of Saquon in terms of like athleticism and things like that. I think he's really, really great. I think he's really, really great. I'm certainly not guaranteeing him to be a Hall of Famer.
I'm not guaranteeing. You're getting
close. I'm
not guaranteeing.
And so to me, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like we're getting unrealistic with the projections for Ashton Jeanty, and that doesn't mean that I don't think he's awesome.
Well, what would your projection for Travis Hunter be, though? Because to me, it's like that. He reminds me of Justin Jefferson and Champ Bailey, which I know is unrealistic, but at the same time, it's like if you're taking the guy up there, which is where he belongs, like that's why you draft somebody at the top of the draft, is because you think that that's what's going to happen. You think it's an All-Pro Hall of Fame type.
Yeah, I mean, I think Travis Hunter is one of one in this draft and one of one in football history.
True.
So
yeah, I mean, there is.
What's your comp?
No, what? But you, I feel like there's a little hypocrisy going on, because when he calls he calls Ashton Jeanty a potential LaDainian Tomlinson Hall of Famer, and you say that's kind of ridiculous, and you say that Travis Hunter is one of one in NFL history.
That's a fact.
In NFL history, when he hasn't even played a stat.
But that's a fact. No one else has ever been like him.
It is true.
But no one's ever. Well, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
In what way?
No one else has ever gone through college playing the majority of snaps on both sides of the ball.
Okay, that's fair.
So
but
there's
then,
no one else has ever been the wide receiver one and the cornerback one in a draft class.
But do you think that's going to happen in the NFL?
It just depends on what the team is willing to let him do.
Yeah.
I mean, he could absolutely do it and do it at an incredibly high rate. I'm 100% confident in that. I'm not 100% confident in a team letting go. But let's not make this about Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
It's about Ashton Jeanty. And like I said, I just, to me, it's kind of crazy to compare him to LaDainian Tomlinson. If you want to compare him to Bijan Robinson, sign me up. There's just a massive gap there.
So...
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's just look at those two guys. Bijan, Saquon, we can also throw in there, and LaDainian Tomlinson. LaDainian Tomlinson, as you said, top 5 running back of all time, a Hall of Famer. Bijan, 2 seasons, so a much smaller sample size. But last year, Bijan had 1,400 rushing yards and another 400 receiving yards, almost 1,900 yards from scrimmage, rushing and receiving combined. I mean, if Bijan continues to do that, he's a Hall of Famer right there. Again, very small sample size, but are we getting nitpicky with Bijan and LT? Because like, what the season he just had last year, like what are you looking at Bijan and kind of holding him back with?
What do you mean by that?
Like, why is
Bijan is great? He's just not an all-time great.
Because he's only been in the NFL for 2 years though.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he could eventually become that, but based on what we've seen so far, it's like Bijan Robinson is going to be a great running back for a while. LaDainian Tomlinson is one of the greatest running backs of all time. To me, there's a big gap there. And to me, it's like, it's not underrating Ashton Jeanty to say, like, I'm confident in him being a great running back for a long time. I'm not confident in him being one of the greatest running backs of all time.
Yeah, I get that. And again, like the average outcome, like if you were to say like anything put together, it probably is more like consistent all-pro than like very, very tippy top. But again, if you're picking which line on the bar graph has the most, like this is what it winds up being, that's where I take LT, just because, again, like when you watch the way he moves, nobody else moves like that. Nobody else brushes tackles off like that. Like he broke 153 tackles last year. Only other guy over 100 was Cam Skadby with 102. Like we talk about the 2,600 rushing yards. 1,900 of them were after contact. Like the guy is just an animal. And you go back and look at the tape against like Oregon was one of them, or even Penn State. The way he ran in that Penn State game was unbelievable. Like he's breaking 7 tackles and picking up 4 yards, and you're just like, get the poor guy himself some help, because he just is that special. I think in every draft class you have hopefully a couple of these guys who you expect to hit that elite level. There's probably 5 Hall of Famers for draft class? Yeah, because about 5 get in, about 5 would come in. And I think that if you're going through saying who's most likely, to me it's Travis Hunter 1, it's Ashton Jeanty 2, and then you can kind of fit some others in there. Like, to me, that's just there's just the freaky upside right there. And I think a pretty high floor too. I guess injuries, workload would be the concern.
So you would consider taking him at number 1 overall?
No, to me that's Travis.
Okay.
To me, regardless of need or anything like that, the right pick is Travis.
Number 2 overall.
That's where you start to consider it. I'd probably say like Abdul Carter is the smarter pick because you take positional value into account. But like, it's right there.
What do you think Abdul Carter's going to become in his career? What's his most likely outcome?
I mean, that one's really tough because you're talking about another one of those like tweener linebackers. But you've seen him, like, again, you've seen Micah Parsons come from that same school doing the same thing.
I would say Micah Parsons or LaDainian Tomlinson.
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yes.
But at the same time,
I don't know. What Micah Parsons are you getting?
Like, I think it's a conversation.
It doesn't even matter.
Again, it's kind of like the Bijan for me. Like, it's tough. Who's he going to be in the rest of his career? Because Micah Parsons,
that is true.
He led the NFL in sacks? Like, if you get that, if you're asking me, do I want an elite pass rusher or an elite running back?
Elite doesn't do this justice, though. It's, do you want a really good pass rusher or one of the greatest running backs of all time?
No, I see what you're saying. And when I think of this, and I do just, if you see him as LT, you absolutely consider him number 1 overall.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that might be a little nitpicky there, but when I think of this conversation, I think of like, okay, is a running back, if you draft him in the top 5, they should be along the lines of what Henry's saying. Saquon should be a future Hall of Famer. When you use the number 2 overall pick in the draft on a running back, he should be a Hall of Famer. 6 to 10, 6 to 11, you should be getting Pro Bowl, All-Pro type of player many times throughout his career. After that, probably in the first round, probably Pro Bowl. Like, if you are drafting a running back in the first round, I think the standards are higher than a lot of other positions. Obviously, the standards with quarterback, I think, go way down in this conversation. But running back's one of the ones where the positional value, specifically in the first round, isn't that high. So you hold them to really high standards.
I think the other tough part is just the longevity, where it's like Ashton Jeanty for the first 4 years, easy pick. But does he actually have the longevity to still be valuable a decade from now? There's just no telling. Like, if he ages like LT did and plays 11 years in the NFL, then it's a lot easier to say like, yes, I go that route. But just knowing how things go with running backs, it could be 4 years in a drop off. It could be 6 years in a drop off. And that's the other piece with running back where it's just hard to take a running back over an edge rusher, even if you do grade the running back a little bit higher. But again, I pick 2. I think there are some teams who it would probably make sense for going Jeanty over Carter.
Okay. Zach, where do you stand?
In terms of what?
Wait, how good is Ashton Jeanty?
I think he's really good. Now, a Saquon number 2 overall, I probably lean with where you are, Ryan. I think he's really good, but I think it is kind of crazy to say that someone's a future first ballot Hall of Famer.
And
right
again, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like,
okay, more likely than not. Isn't
again,
that what you're saying?
I'm saying again, like most likely outcome. I guess
that's maybe, what all I was trying to say.
I probably would go Hall of Fame.
So let's just say
better 50-50. If you're on the lucky half of 50-50.
Sorry, Bet365 is giving you the odds on Ashton Jeanty Hall of Fame, and it's like plus 110 on yes.
I'm smashing the no.
So the other tough part here is that, it takes 10 years for it to. So 10 years, hopefully, he's got to play 10 years in the NFL to have a chance.
Time
you got
value
like
of money
inflation.
And all that.
You got to wait 5 years after that. So you're not getting your payout for 15 years. But yeah, I mean,
I'm giving you a free $100,000 bet,
and you're good. We'll account for inflation in there too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's free, doesn't it?
Yeah, the inflation doesn't matter.
Oh, I have to pick one side or the other?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'd take the yes.
Okay.
I would take the yes. Again, it's hard. It's just hard because you don't know the longevity. But I think there's so many running backs who are going to fall off in 4, 6, 8 years, the standard for running back to get in is going to drop. I'll take it.
I think honestly, if I gave you this opportunity, you would end up landing on no. Logic, like you using logic.
Really? But yeah,
if yes was like plus 400,
Sure.
well,
Then
now
it's easy.
yeah, now you've got a good proposition there. But just think of all the things that could stop someone from getting to the Hall.
or you think like top 5 running backs. You go back through. Was Bijan top 5?
In the draft?
Was he 4?
I think he was 6.
6, so he doesn't
7,
count.
I think 7.
He doesn't count. So really it's Saquon and it's Zeke. So you're 50-50 there probably. Trent
terms of Hall of
Richardson.
Fame?
Saquon's got work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he's probably going to get in
Just has to stay
after this
healthy.
year. And again, like the standards I think for running backs are like it used to be you had every year like 6 1,500-yard rushers. Those days are gone. And I think that the bar for running backs is going to get a little bit lower because otherwise no running backs are just going to get in.
So
But it's one more thing. Didn't you have the Ashton Jeanty as number 1 on the Broncos big board though? Like if
Yep.
Broncos had the number 1 pick, they should
Yep.
take Jeanty.
Yep.
So we're not too far off there.
I just think
So there are teams that should do it.
there are teams that should do what?
Jeanty over.
Yeah.
Jeanty 1.
Yeah.
What was the process on that? Like, did you take out guys that would never fall to, or like the Broncos had no chance at?
No, everyone's included.
I
Everyone's
had,
included.
I had Travis Hunter 1.
Yeah.
And then Jeanty wound up 2 with. There's tough conversations.
But
there.
it's viewing it from a Broncos perspective.
Right, but if
Yeah.
the Broncos
if
had
the Broncos
number
had
one
number
Yep.
1.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Who would they go with this year?
pick, to me it would be Travis. But
Yep.
Right, and that's where Dre was too. So we landed on Travis as a group collectively. I just think a dynamic running back. If you think you're getting LT
well, yeah.
for this offense with Sean Payton, with Bo Nix, what that would do. Let's bring this to a Broncos perspective and talk about how much the Broncos should be willing to move up. And before we do that, want to give a shout out to our friends over at Bet365. Ryan, you mentioned potentially like a bet out there about Ashton Jeanty being a Hall of Famer. If anywhere's going to have it, it's Bet365 because Bet365, they're never ordinary. They've got so many different bets, and you bet you can bet on the draft right now. You can bet on where people will be drafted. You can bet on who the Broncos will draft. They've got it all up right now over at Bet365. Scan the QR code on the screen to download the app and use the code DNVR365 when you sign up. When you deposit $10, you place a $5 bet, you are going to get bonus bets up to $150 when you use that code DNVR365 over at Bet365. And you might as well do it right now to get in on the national championship game tonight. You guys like Florida or Houston?
Houston.
I'll go Houston.
Fine, well, give
I'm
me
struggling.
Florida then if you guys are going Houston there. So
They've been making
I got to ride for the Big 12.
Florida's
I love
been
it.
making me money all year, but Houston looks good.
all right, so if you want to get on the action, go to Bet365. Use that code DNVR365. Must be 20 and older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, once help, caller text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
And a shout out to our friends over at Timeline, which is I think it's kind of a fun name. Reminds me of like what's that show back in the day? The one that was like Black Mirror, but back in the day.
X-Files.
Twilight Zone. Like there's something about Timeline that like makes you it's like time travel. Maybe that's where my mind is. Timeline's awesome. They sell health and longevity supplements featuring their proprietary MitoPure ingredient. The way MitoPure works is that the cells in your body take it in and it helps reverse age-related decline. So you feel stronger, you get more energy, there's more endurance. They've done 15 plus years of research and secured 30 plus US patents for their products. Timeline's awesome. Again, the cells are very important. They're like what you're made of. And so by going in there and giving them more energy, make you feel stronger, preserving health and mobility, that's what they're all about. They're, like I said, patented ingredient is MitoPure, a postbiotic nutrient that clears our dysfunctional mitochondria, which if you remember, what would that'd be biology class in high school. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So that's what they're all about. Right now, if you want to sign up, check it out, which we've actually got some here at the office. We've been checking it out. Right now, Timeline is giving you 10% off your order of MitoPure. You can go to timeline.com timeline.com/DNVR to get started. That's timeline.com/DNVR to check it out.
So, shout out to everyone that's tuning in with us. Hit us with a thumbs up in the Toyota chat. We appreciate everyone rocking and rolling with us 17 days before the draft. And I like that we talked about how good Jeanty is of a prospect just overall. But that doesn't matter for the Broncos. They don't have to say, like, will he be a Hall of Famer if he lands with the Tennessee Titans or with the Raiders or with these? All the Broncos have to care about is how good will he be with us? So now let's look at Ashton Jeanty through these orange and blue colored glasses. And Ryan and Henry, what type of player do you see if the Broncos, I guess we have seen him in orange and blue glasses for the past 4 years at Boise, but what type of player do you see if he were to land on the Broncos?
A game-changing player. A player who would solve the Broncos' offense's biggest problem, which is just not having a guy that they can count on back there. And you start to imagine, like, I don't know if I think Sean Payton gets a lot of credit for what he did with Bo Nix last year while not having a running game. I don't know if he gets enough credit.
Yeah, I agree.
And a tight end. Like, if you were to ask an NFL decision maker, like, what are the two things you need to help a rookie quarterback other than offensive line, they would probably say tight end and running back.
Yep.
Broncos didn't have either last year. And they made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. I sometimes feel like it might be taken for granted. But if you add a running game to that and a potentially dynamic running game at that, now all of a sudden you've almost, like, I don't know, put like a force field around Bo Nix's development.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
like, it's like, you touch wood, but it's like, how could it possibly go south? If you just made everything around him better.
Well, and I think I go back to, I think it was the first press conference of the offseason. No, or maybe it was the combine. I think it was the combine. Somebody asked Sean, like, hey, how much would it help Bo to go get him a playmaker in the first round? And he said, well, you can help Bo by doing a lot of different things. You could help Bo by getting a defender, which means the defense is better, which means his job is easier. And I think, to me, that's what it comes down to, is how do you make Bo Nix's job easier? And they did that by making the defense better. You no longer have to worry about scoring 24. There are going to be hopefully fewer fourth quarters where you go into it saying, like, okay, we need to score here and we need to score quick. Like, we need to get down the field. We need Bo to kind of spread things out and put the team on his back. In theory, there are less of those situations. You can create even less of those, or even take some of those first downs away from him. If you're running the ball well and just get to say, hey, we're picking up 6 yards a pop here, let's give it to Jeanty. We don't have to call a pass here. That makes it so much easier. And then when you do circle back and call a pass, you do go play action, the defense is biting on. I think that's what it comes down to me, is how do you make Bo Nix's job easier? And I can't think of anything that would help him more, including a receiver, than a running back who can just change the way this offense is built, all of a sudden turn this into hopefully one of the best running games in the NFL.
Well, and then on top of that, you also help Bo and this entire offense and Sean, but he's also the Joker. And maybe you guys just didn't want to say the word because you're over it, but Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in this draft, and he's also probably the best joker in this draft in terms of a running back that's a joker. And you combine those two, and man, that is just a perfect recipe for Sean Payton, for this offense, for Bo Nix, for everything. So yeah, he is almost a perfect fit for what he is a perfect fit for what the Broncos need this offseason.
I push back on the Joker thing just a little bit, just because we haven't really seen Ashton Jeanty like line up at receiver ever.
Yeah, and so that's a tough part. We saw more in 2023 than 2024. So 2024, they made the shift to, like, we're just handing him the ball. Let's not get cute. I still haven't gone back and looked, but the rumors he played more slot receiver in high school in Italy.
No, that's interesting.
No, yeah, for a lot of reasons, because I'm not sure Italian slot receivers versus, like, sometimes we know our guy Dre upstairs was an Italian power forward, and he's like 5'8".
Oh my god!
So like, if we're going to that, I kind of want to see the tape before I say, like,
I just got to see
like
a good route and catching the ball away from his body.
Exactly, and I think, again, he's just one of those freaks, again, where you might be doing a little too much if you're not just handing him the ball. But I think it is an interesting conversation. Like, if you're trying to get two running backs, if you get Ashton Jeanty, who's your other? I'd say I'd probably want more of a joker type than more of a power type with him.
Yeah, but if you're getting Ashton Jeanty, you're giving up probably the capital that you would have used to get a second running back.
Probably, yeah.
That's why he's your joker. And he would be used maybe not so much as lining up in the slot a ton because you have Evan Ingram for that now. But I mean, he would be a threat out of the backfield, not just running the ball as a receiver as well.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it like a strong suit of his, but he would be a threat.
Yeah.
I think it's a strong suit. I think there's one weakness with him, and it's what the Toyota chat is kind of pounding the table for: ball security. And that is maybe the one thing for a running back that can derail a great running back. You lose confidence, you put the ball on the ground a couple of times. We saw what happened with Audric Estime last year. Obviously, the leash would be so much longer for Sean if this was Ashton Jeanty instead of Audric Estime. Audric Estime fumbles in his very first game. What was it, his second carry in the NFL by trying to hurdle a guy? He fumbles. The Broncos get the ball back so it doesn't hurt him. But then Audric Estime ends up on IR the following week I don't know if any of us could really see when the injury happened. When Sean was asked about it, like, when did the injury happen? Sean said, well, if you look at the tape, it's very obvious when it happened. Everyone looked at the tape, and it wasn't very obvious when it happened. So fumbling issues for a young guy can get you in the doghouse. Now, again, Ashton Jeanty would have a much longer leash, but that is pretty much the only weakness that I see with his game. And that's kind of a scary one when it comes to a running back.
For sure.
Totally. Again, 4 fumbles last year, and we've talked about it on the draft podcast a lot. I go back to, Dre even might have said it on our podcast, I can't remember, but if an average running back is getting hit, 100 times, Ashton Jeanty is getting hit like 250 times because there was no running back in the country who had more carries. He had 375. Cam Scadaboo had 294 a second. Like, first of all, you have that. And then you have the fact, again, 152 broken tackles, which is maybe the most ever. I've checked the past decade and nobody came close. So not only do you have like the actual tackles that end the play, you also have all the times he gets hit. And I don't know how to find the numbers on this, but I would imagine his like fumble rate per defender touching him would actually be pretty low. It's just that when you're a high volume player, all the numbers go up. It's the same thing. Like, you give Nikola Jokic the ball a lot, guess what? His turnovers are going to be higher than your average player.
My only pushback with that and question with that would be, didn't he have 2 fumbles against Penn State?
I think 2 of them were there, yes.
So played against Penn State, played against Oregon. But when you look at the top competition and when it was in the college football playoffs and he played Penn State, that's when he did have 2 fumbles. Does that scare you when the level of competition goes up big time and the fumbles also drastically go up?
Not for fumbles. I think there's something there sometimes in terms of like, again, like he broke 16 tackles in the game, third most of the season. So like you see some of that sort of stuff. I don't think that better competition would mean like, oh, here comes the fumble problem so much as it would mean like, oh, the long speed doesn't seem like it adds up. Fumbles are just a little too fluky for that to matter for me. If that makes sense.
We'll see. I also think there's probably something to, he was asked to play hero ball every game. And it's just like, go ahead, carry us to victory. And maybe you're going a little bit outside of yourself and exposing yourself to fumbling a little bit more by trying to make more happen.
That's fair. That's totally fair. That's just my only question with him, and something that the Broncos are going to have to figure out if they do want to trade up for him. So let's talk about how much they should be willing to give up in order to get Ashton Jeanty, who we all think would just be a perfect fit with the Broncos. And before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Raising Cane's, because you have 12 hours left to take advantage of Raising Cane's Underdog Challenge. And the Underdog Challenge is back this year. 1 day left, 24 hours left. And with college basketball, if you bet, or if the underdog wins, Raising Cane's is giving away free box combos every time underdog wins. So Houston's an underdog, right? in terms of the betting line. So I bet if Houston wins, Raising Cane's is going to be giving away free box combos. And what you have to do is register for your chance to win one over at raisingcanes.com/underdog challenge. No purchase necessary. You must be 18 or older. It ends tonight with the final college basketball game with Florida going against Houston. Rules on eligibility and how to enter at raisingcanes.com/underdog challenge. So make sure to sign up before the game tonight and pull for Houston to win to potentially get that free box combo over at raisingcanes.com/underdog challenge. Raising Canes, one love.
Also, shout out to our friends over at Toyota. Did you know that Toyota currently offers more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker?
That's what I like to see.
I had heard that. Yes.
Pretty special. And
It is.
That's just one of the many things that makes Toyota incredibly special. I personally drive the RAV4, and it's the best car I've ever owned by like an incredible amount. It's not even close. It's basically like, the Ashton Jeanty of cars.
Wow.
In this
do
class,
it
it's
all.
like Jeanty, and then there's a
Yep.
pretty big drop off. That's how I feel about all the cars that I've owned. So on top of that, they also have the best customer service, especially at your front range Toyota stores. And you can check those out at AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corbin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
How much should the Broncos? Well, first off, any chance Ashton Jeanty falls to 20
No.
where the Broncos are?
No.
Yeah, it does not seem like that. So then you get into the conversation of, well, how much would you be willing to give up to get Ashton Jeanty and make him a Bronco?
Yeah, so we have our resident Bears fan here in the office, Scott Proctor, who I do the Buff Show with, and I offered him this deal, and he took it immediately. So maybe we need to scale it back a little bit.
Okay.
But I said 20, this year's second, and next year's third.
Yep. That's where I'm at. That was my exact line.
And he took the deal.
And so this deal makes sense because the Bears are picking 10, right?
Yep.
And we've seen this exact deal happen with the Denver Broncos many years ago. Broncos were at 10. The Steelers were at 20. The Steelers wanted, was it Devin Bush
Yep.
Yeah.
at that point? And they traded 20, a second round pick.
43 or something.
Yep, and a future third round pick.
Yeah.
And moved from 20 to 10. So we've seen this exact deal happen before. It's next year's third.
Yeah, that was a sticking point for me. I said it's not going to be this year's third. It's going to be next year's third.
And I would do that. I would do it. But
Easy,
Henry, is that
yep.
the most you would do?
No.
Off the top of my head, but then if they were to come back and be like, oh, come on, give me one of those 3/6 too, I could be like, okay, why not? So that is probably about where my line is. But if push came to shove and it was close, then
What if
I
they
might be able to make
said
something work.
has to be this year's third?
Yeah.
You'd need to throw something else.
Yeah, like we'll throw back a sixth.
Could we get
you got four.
also your fourth this year and we'll give you our fourth next year? Just something to maybe you can make
Give
that
us
trade
some-
later.
some
But that
ammunition.
to have only one pick in the top 100 would kind of sting. I think I'd find a way around that.
Especially what's so tough about this is if you trade for Ashton Jeanty, you're going all in on this year, next year, in like 3 years from now. You're going all in on the now, yet you're losing two players that could help you now with that second round pick, with that third round pick. That's why, man, I couldn't do it.
I mean, the Broncos drafted Brock Osweiler the same year they got Peyton Manning.
which is crazy, and somehow worked out in the end. But in the moment, that made no sense to me.
It certainly made no
Yep.
sense.
Didn't work out for Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers either. Who knows? Maybe if they had taken a receiver in the first round instead, they would have won something.
Yeah.
Didn't work out for Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers.
This is a little different though because you're saying Ashton Jeanty helps us win a championship more than that second round pick.
Also true.
Plus a first round pick.
Yeah.
But then also the third round pick. That is
But
what's
it's
up.
next year's third.
Yeah.
Oh, then yes, then I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you think about it, it's, say Broncos could take Walter Nolan would probably be there in the first, or let's make it easy. No, let's do it. Walter Nolan in the first round. Second round they take, say Quinshawn Judkins is there. did Walter Nolan and Quinshon Judkins help you more than just Jeanty?
No.
Like, I don't think so. I think Jeanty is just too big. He's too good.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I would do that deal. Ryan,
Comments are saying that deal is way too much, and there's actual precedent for that deal happening. So I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so either. Now, what if I said the Bears or another team say, in order to trade back, we need a future first?
No.
Probably not. Not unless, like, I don't think the Bears are that good if they said, like, and we'll give you, like, next year's second. Like, something like that could kind of make it a conversation. You're like, okay, we're going to be picking at the top of that round. Hopefully we were going to be picking at the end of the round. But probably not. In a vacuum, if it's just, like, 2 firsts for this, then no.
Even if even if you think he's like...
Again, there's still the longevity questions. Like, he is a running back. And, like, even if he shows
with
up...
a lot of tread off the tires.
Exactly. And here's a fun trivia. There's been one running back since the year 2000 who in a single season in college football has more rushing yards per game than Ashton Jeanty did last year. Can you guess who it is?
Wait, what was it?
One running back since the year 2000 who has more rushing yards per game than Ashton Jeanty.
Saquon.
Nope. Played in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to be...
Rashad Penny.
Nope.
Another
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh.
Again, the stats all that. Again, but like that's where I mean, it's just, if he turned out to that, then obviously you look back and say great pick. But it is a running back, and losing a first round pick is probably a good line to draw, because if he gives you 3 good years and then you say like, oh, his legs wore down, and like we had LaDainian Tomlinson for 3 years, but then that was it. That isn't worth it, and that gamble is definitely there.
Who are the other? There's a couple guys from. There's another guy from San Diego State who dominated the Mountain West. Other than Rashad Penny.
Oh.
There's like one more guy who went crazy and never did much in the NFL.
Capri Bibbs is on the touchdown leaderboard.
No.
Okay. I think he's like 3rd all time in rushing touchdowns. 5th, sorry. I'll see if I can find it.
So you throw out the longevity, and it is a fair question.
Uh-huh.
I think it might be a little too
Donnell Pumphrey?
There it is.
There we go.
I think it might be a little too overblown, though, because what would you give up if you're the Broncos to get Ezekiel Elliott? Like, if Ashton Jeanty is Ezekiel Elliott.
4 good years?
Well, his rookie year, 1,600 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
Second year, 900 because he got hurt, only played 10 games. Third year, 1,400 rushing yards. By the way, led the NFL his first and his third year in the NFL. Fourth year, 1,300 rushing yards. Fifth year, 979. Then sixth year, 1,000 rushing yards.
So there's the trap on the back end where if you have a guy who's doing all that, you probably give him the second contract, and then you're just screwed. And so you wind up paying market value for it in the long run, which hurts the value. In a world where you just
keep those first 6 years.
Okay, so if you're just thinking like, we're in, we get that, and it's over, I mean, that might be worth it. First round pick this year, first round pick next year, that might be worth it.
I don't think so.
No? I mean, you're pretty close, though. If we just say like, hey, you're guaranteed to lead the NFL in rushing twice, but you're going to be looking for a new running back in 6 years in 2031.
But also 3 of those years are disappointing.
Yeah. Again, disappointing in that
fair.
there's 900 yards, and Broncos aren't necessarily churning out 900-yard rushers at this point.
For sure, but
That's more of an indictment on
totally.
2 elite years. 2
pretty much 3 elite years.
What was the third?
1357.
Okay. My question is who's going to be the other person who takes these carries, and what did they do? Because if you're getting, let's just say 80% of that production, and then you also have whoever your first round pick is next year, which you expect to be a game-changing player, then you probably take that deal. And this is the whole first round running back position value conundrum, is can you get close by just like moneyballing the position rather than going all in on it and getting the best.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But Ryan, when I think about what this team would be with the leading rusher in the NFL, 2 out of 6 years, and then a 1,300-yard running back
With this defense?
the Broncos are winning a Super Bowl, at least one Super Bowl with this right now. And so when I think of that, I think of, okay, what first round pick are the Broncos giving up next year? They're probably giving up 25, 26 to 32, somewhere in there. And that's worth it. That is worth it to me. So as crazy as it seems like, without viewing it this way, if the Broncos are able to get that, I'm doing it. And so that's why, like, I'm not even that worried about the longevity thing, because Ezekiel Elliott, I think people view him as like a bust now. He wasn't in that first contract now. And so I just, man, the leading running back in the NFL, you are that dominant with this pick. That's worth a future first, because I think what it would mean for this team is you're competing for legitimately competing for Super Bowls.
I mean, yeah, that's like, if you're the GM and that's if you or George Payton and the Broncos made this move and they came out and they did their little press conference after the picks and he said, like, to me, this is the move that makes us win a Super Bowl, then I'm just like, I sign. I'm glad that you were confident enough and, you know, you went forward with your plan and said, we're making this happen because we believe that's the catalyst. I'm in on it. It's just a stretch, I think, to say that he's going to be first in the NFL in rushing 2 out of the next 3 years and add another 1,300-yard season in. I've always believed you don't trade future firsts unless it's a position of incredibly high value. And that would be quarterback. There's like a long drop off before I consider it again. And then it's like pass rusher, elite pass rusher. Maybe, I don't even like that at corner. I don't like it at wide receiver. Like, I'm pretty sure I used to say you only trade future first round picks for quarterbacks.
But we had a rule there. You don't trade future first round picks until you have a quarterback, and then it opens it up a little bit.
It opens it up, but I still would want to stick with positions of incredibly high value.
That's fair.
I think the other piece of the equation is, so the 3 good years for Ezekiel Elliott, 2 of them he had far more carries than every other running back in the league, like 15% more. And the other one, he was 2 carries behind Derrick Henry, who actually did lead the league that year. So they kind of ran him into the ground. Sean Payton will never run a running back into the ground. Like, we've seen decades of this where there's always 2 running backs. There's always 2 running backs splitting carries. Now, sometimes that split is 50-50. Sometimes that split is more 65-35 or even 70-30. But in every single season you go back, there's at least 2 guys who are splitting those touches, 3 guys who are splitting those touches. So that's the other piece that makes me think that the Broncos could have that longevity. And again, you get to December, and that's when it's time to say, hey, if Jeanty's cooking, we're giving him 30 touches a game into January through the playoffs. But I don't think that they would make the mistake of just saying, hey, every single snap is yours until you get hurt, and then we'll patch it, and then when you get back, it's yours again.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take the numbers of Zeke, not necessarily exactly how he was used
the
there.
point just being, when our concern is the longevity, they'll manage him in a way that means that should be less of a concern with the Broncos than it would be if he goes to, say the Jets, who just need somebody they can give the ball to over and over, assuming they do the Breece Hall trade and all that.
Well, if you want to dream about Ashton Jeanty, I think you have to start with considering moving a future first round pick, because I think that's
to go to 10.
No, to go further than 10, because he's not going to be available at 10, Ryan. If he's there at 10, then the proposal you threw out is very realistic. We've seen it happen, and it's something that all 3 of us would accept right there. But he is going to be gone by the 6th pick in the draft. And so if you want to go from 20 to 5, you're going to have to give at least a future first round pick. And that's why I think that is where this conversation legitimately starts here, is because I think the Las Vegas Raiders, Ashton Jeanty is going to be a Raider if he falls to the 6th pick. And maybe it's smoke right now, but the Jeanty could go even higher than the 6th pick. I don't think Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders is smoke at all. Is that what you're referring to, Henry?
I mean, that's just why when the GM says something, you just don't listen. But
it's been there for much longer than just last
totally.
week.
And it makes sense for a lot of different reasons, and there's a chance that that's the way they go. But I just don't think it's a guarantee. Like, I think they've got a bunch of different options they'll consider there. I wonder what Bet365 says about it. I'll check.
about those odds.
Yeah, I wonder if they've made a guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty much, probably not Jacksonville, but I could see the Patriots pulling the trigger. I could see, obviously, the Raiders, the Jets.
What about the Giants? They just lost Saquon. Saw how valuable he was on another team. I just saw a report that Schefter thinks that Travis Hunter is going to go 2 to the Browns. So what if they decide like we're not going to go quarterback this year and Travis Hunter's off the board for the Giants?
They have to go quarterback.
They have to. To me, this draft, these quarterbacks are just bad enough. It reminds me more like the Kenny Pickett draft, where it's just like, hey, in a lot of years, just take the best quarterback available. This year, I'd say no. Like if you don't really like them, there are a few really good players at the top that you can take. Deal with it next year. Guess what? You're gonna have a top 3 pick anyway.
So Jeanty, could you see it?
I mean,
that's just one I hadn't thought about until right now.
I could see it. Again, like if the GM's emotional about losing Saquon and realizing how good they had it, then you could see it. Again, it's probably not the right move because while it would help patch together these next few years, again, it's a running back. Longevity is a question. A team like that, they're going to run him into the ground. Getting somebody who's still going to be there, hopefully a decade from now, is probably smarter for them.
Yeah, just your superstar wide receiver now wants a trade.
Also true. Also true.
Buddy, you're under contract for like 4 more years. Yeah, team control for additional 5.
Doesn't really matter anymore.
Kid, yeah.
Well, until a team does call the bluff.
Yeah, but you can just whine your way out of anything in sports now.
But not in the second year of your rookie deal.
That's what
that
you
is
think.
one where there is actually there is team control there though.
For sure.
There is.
Yeah, just
who has that ever happened? Second, I'm trying to think.
People are just now like they don't want the disgruntled employee in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeanty's over under for draft pick is set at 9.5, but the under is minus 200.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
maybe there is a little more hope. Maybe I'm giving the Raiders too much credit. I don't know for taking
the hope for me would be that how good this running back draft class is, and it is really, really good. Maybe the best I can remember. That being, or at least in terms of its depth. So that would give you hope that every team is thinking like, we could still get a really good running back and fix that offensive line problem we have.
Yeah,
we could still get a really good running back and find a corner, which was a hole for us. Like that's a lot of teams are going to be thinking that way.
Or the Raiders just go full Raiders and say, "Yep, we're taking a running back, but it's Omarion Hampton." Sorry, RK.
With the 6th
Didn't mean
pick,
to offend you.
That would be crazy.
That would be very Raiders.
There are those reports that there are some teams that like Hampton better, and those probably smoke at this point. So you don't really believe them, but if anybody's going to do it,
that wouldn't be a Raiders move. The Raiders move would be taking Travion Henderson at 6 right there because of the speed, the flash, the burst. That would be the Raiders thing.
Please do it, Raiders. Yeah, Pete has done some crazy stuff.
Ashton Jeanty, better 40 time than Henderson for what it's worth.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, if they're gonna go off board, I don't think it's Omarion Hampton. Like that wouldn't
That's
be
fair.
the Raiders' way. The Raiders would
Jaden
be
Blue
getting the
would be
splash.
their guy.
Yeah. And that would probably be in the 2nd round, which is still a big reach for what people think.
That's from Google AI, by the way. I just feel like that I need to throw that caveat out there whenever I use a stat. It's like there's a real chance that's wrong.
Yeah, I think as David in the Twitter chat saying, I just think that that he's going to be gone by the time the 10th pick rolls around. But if he's not, that's where kind of the line is for me. And what you said about the over-under being 9.5, if he falls to be the over that, then I think it's legitimately in play for the Broncos.
By the way, given that Tom Brady now has influence in the Raiders organization, do you think that he would be a fan of drafting Ashton Jeanty?
That's a tough one. Yeah, like you think of those playoff runs, and typically there was a running back who like took over and kind of became
a
good
good
piece.
running back, but not a great running back.
But they never invested. Like they were always able to find those guys. Again, it's like the CJ Anderson thing, where it's like what you need is a guy who between the tackles is going to get you 5 yards a pop every time, And if you just get somebody who gives you 5 yards a pop for a month, well, guess what? You're going to the Super Bowl. Like you lean on that. So I think he sees the value, but they also are able to find those guys.
Right. I think that he would probably say like you can find running backs anywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, because like it's
Can't
like
find offensive linemen everywhere.
Guess what? Lawrence Maroney's hot right now, or Leonard Fournette's gonna have this one good year, or like whatever, and they didn't necessarily need to invest all that much.
The big difference though is I don't think Tom looks at Geno Smith and says Geno Smith is anywhere in my league at all.
Fair.
So maybe it's just a totally different situation. But I mean, Ryan, it is a really good point. You typically view things the way how you had it, and especially being like the all-time great right there. I mean, I'm just looking at the leading rushers. They did have Corey Dillon. I mean, that
It was
You have to go by playoff stats. Do you have the playoff stats?
Here's the other
No.
thing.
Because again, it was always like we've got like 3 guys, sometimes like 4, who over the course of the season are like rotating in, and that gets narrowed down because we got one guy who's just going right now.
Yeah, they have one offensive weapon, so I mean they could go
Yeah, T-Mac.
anywhere.
He'd be a great fit.
yeah, they could. They
Yeah.
could.
Yeah. To me, the draft plan is you call whoever has the number 1 pick and say like, hey, we've got 3 first-round picks for you. And the idea being we're going to go get Travis Hunter. And as soon as Travis Hunter's off the board, you change it and you say, hey, we've got first, this year's second, and next year's third for you, with the idea being we're getting Jeanty, and you keep until...
Are you talking about the Raiders?
No, Broncos. And then until Jeanty's off the board, and then you say, oh, those are the 2 guys worth like really going crazy for. And now we're going to wait for pick 20 and see what happens.
Would you give 3 first-round picks for your Travis Hunter?
Well, if you think about it, you're getting 2 first-round picks.
Also true.
In Travis Hunter, so then it's just only 1 additional. Yeah.
Yeah, your logic is so off. Earlier this show, you said the positional values there.
You're getting 2 positions.
Important positions too.
Yeah, probably they're
In
both
terms of
top
value.
5 importance, but
yeah.
it's not just for one player; it's for 2 players.
Yeah.
But you said there's a big drop off from quarterback to then pass rusher. You didn't say
Totally.
But again,
cornerback and receiver.
And then you go
I
like...
would trade a future first-round pick for a cornerback and a receiver.
but 2 future first-round picks.
Yes, technically, yeah, 2
Yeah.
2 future. So you're getting your first-round pick this year is Travis Hunter. Your first-round pick next year is Travis Hunter. And then you have to add in 1 additional.
Easy.
Yeah, do it.
Again, and that's my strategy. You call it number 1 pick, say, hey, we've got these 3 for you, and you do it to the next team, and the next team till Hunter's off the board, and then you start going with your 1, 2, next year's 3.
You're getting this year's wide receiver 1, next year's cornerback 1.
Yep.
You would never be able to do that with the picks that you're gonna have.
No.
That's worth it.
But then
Easy.
also an additional one.
Yeah, you got no one that year.
Yeah. It's a steal.
Wow, that's wild. Let me know in the Twitter chat if you would do that. I just feel like that doesn't add up with your trading up
Again,
that you said 20 minutes ago.
But that's because this is a completely unprecedented player, which is what
Yep.
I was talking about at the top of the show. This is a one-of-one unicorn. No one's ever been like him type of guy. And he's such a perfect fit for the Broncos because they don't have a need at cornerback 1. And they only sort of have a little bit of need at cornerback 2. And so now he's full-time wide receiver and defensive weapon.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be too rich for me.
That's because you don't believe.
I believe.
I don't. You're right. I don't believe he's.
Do you believe?
I don't believe either. That
Okay.
Travis Hunter's a 100% player on both sides of the ball. I don't think he's a
Well, he wouldn't
cornerback
need
one and
to
a
be for the
receiver.
Yeah.
Receiver one.
Well, do you believe that he's the best corner in this draft?
Yes.
Do you
Yep.
believe he's the best wide receiver in this draft?
I'm not as sold on that.
So who would be?
T-Mac, I guess, is number 2 right there.
Yeah, he's a lot better.
To me, it's Travis Hunter by a mile.
But again, you have to take in, is he going to play 100% of snaps? I don't think so. That's my
but you don't
biggest
need him
issue
to. You
there.
don't need him to.
Yep.
And you're not asking him to, especially if you're the Broncos.
To me,
Well, but you're saying you're making the case that he's cornerback 1 and receiver 1 in this draft, but now you're saying he's not going to be that in the NFL.
What I'm saying is the Broncos don't need him to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So he can be wide receiver 1.
Yep.
And then on third downs, he comes in and he's guarding T. Higgins instead of Riley Moss.
But see, I think he's a better corner than receiver. And
Yeah.
that's not to be disrespectful to him. That's to say I think he's an elite corner in the NFL. I don't know if he's an elite receiver in the NFL, but I think his value was more at corner. Now, clearly, I don't know, Ryan.
Yeah.
Did his pro day indicate by doing more at receiver than corner that he wants to be a receiver? I don't know. I'm truly asking.
I think.
First of all, there's almost twice as much money at receiver than there is at corner.
Yeah.
So I would guess that he plays a lot there. I wouldn't take anything away from the pro day. He wasn't even gonna.
No, I'm asking. Yeah.
To me, seeing him as like you gotta split hairs to find him as a better receiver or cornerback. That's where I'm at. Where it's like I maybe lean a little bit toward receiver just because like some of the ball skills are just special. And not only does RK say it's the best ball skills he's ever seen, also Mel Kiper says that. Mel Kiper has some takes.
He's also watched more receivers than I have.
He also has like 50 years in it. And so I think, to me, with the Broncos, he's obviously a receiver, and I don't think it's really much of a conversation. But I do think that year 2, you start working him in a little bit at cornerback with the idea that year 3, if all's going well, you see what happens when you play him 80% on each side of the ball. But things have to work right to get there. Do you guys know the last time somebody traded up for a running back was?
In the first round?
In the first round. Trade up in the first round. Or even to the first round.
Oh, to the first round. So someone went from second to first round.
I'll spoil and say not this one. But right before this, somebody did.
Is it Sean Payton going up?
Nope.
I don't know then.
2015. A former Bronco.
2015.
Somebody traded up to snag a former Broncos. Anybody in the chat have it?
Wait, traded up to snag a former Bronco?
Traded up, got somebody who later became a Bronco.
Who later became a Bronco.
Course,
Melvin Gordon.
Yep, Melvin Gordon.
Nice.
Chargers
Friend
traded.
of the program.
Friend of the program. Yep. Chargers traded 117, a future 5th to move up to 15. Before that, there were 2 trade ups in 2012. Cleveland traded the 4th pick, 118th, 139, and 211 for Trent Richardson at number 3.
Oof.
Not great. And then the year before that, the Broncos were involved. They had already traded down with the Patriots to get to 31 from 25. Then they traded 31 to Tampa, picked up 36 and 101. Tampa took. Can you guess? Do you remember who Tampa took? 2012. Another.
Boise.
Yeah, another Boise.
What's his name?
Muscle Hamster.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know his nickname. What's the first letter of his first name?
It's a D.
First letter of the last name?
M.
Something Martin.
Yep. Oh, I know what that is. Muscle Hamster.
Well, I forget his first name.
Doug Martin.
Doug Martin. Yeah.
Doug.
Yeah. So those are the last 3 trade for running backs. You just don't really see that. Rashad Penny was a trade down from 18. Jahmyr Gibbs was a trade down from 6 to 12. Those are the other running back trades.
Yeah, you don't see it often. Would you say those ones worked out?
Nope.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon, no. Doug Martin, no. And Trent Richardson, no.
Definitely not.
Doug Martin was a beast for a second, but 2 1,400-yard seasons.
And that's
pretty good.
But
that's
again,
just why I think
Ezekiel Elliott conversation.
This draft, I think it's time to say farewell to Ashton Jeanty. I don't think he's slipping, but if he does, I think if he hits that over, which what could you get it at? Plus 150?
200.
Over it?
You're right. Plus 150. It was minus
plus 150?
160.
If that hits, you can make money, and he might be a Bronco.
There's a slight chance that everyone just wants to hold off.
Yeah.
And say, we'll get our running back later.
And that's such a good point with how deep of a draft it is.
Yep.
And especially
gap,
if you get a team that thinks Omar and Hampton's actually better and takes him before Jeanty and makes Jeanty fall, that would be crazy.
And just to go back to Travis Hunter, like I understand that my take on it might be a little crazy. That being said, I've just never seen a player like that. Like,
No, I agree.
At any level, anywhere.
Nope.
I've just never seen anything like it. And I've never been more confident in someone's ability to go dominate at the next level.
He's a freak. Like, he's just untouchable. Like, you give him the ball again as Chris Sims says. Sorry, another guy who has some takes. You give him the ball. The first guy is not going to touch him.
No,
It
man,
just doesn't happen. 15 receiving touchdowns.
The thing that scares me is just his size.
Yeah.
And
Was he
It's gotten bigger,
192?
though.
the legs and the pro day, that's what stuck out to me the most, was just like they seem so small. And
Yeah, but that's how guys are now. Like, that's what Justin Jefferson looks like.
Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
is that what he looks like?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. When I saw Travis out there, it seemed a lot skinnier. Just the legs. But also, doesn't he have really long legs?
I mean, he's
I don't know.
long. He's long
Yeah.
in general.
That's just not a Sean Payton thing.
I mean, I think it's a difference when you're like 6'3", 6'4". Like when you're a big guy, then like maybe he has the same length legs as those guys. But
But
the
that's what
point
you're
being,
saying about T-Mac, though.
Oh,
T-Mac
totally.
has the short legs.
But when you're 6'4" and an eighth with short legs for your body, those legs are probably the same length as a guy who's like 6 foot. You know. And again, like the idea being shiftiness, and Travis Hunter is, I think, pretty easily the best route runner in the class. The shiftiness is not something you really worry about.
Fun conversation. We are 17 days away from the draft. We'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. And we got some really cool things coming this week. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m.
We all silly like the mayor.